feelings are not facts. And so if you feel abandoned, you might be carrying baggage, and you know that you are. You indicate such in your writing. But don't make people that are currently in your life pay for the sins of others in the past. That's not how justice works. That's not a healthy mindset. You need to begin challenging this thinking in your heart. And when you feel that sense of vulnerability and nudity and fear, I want you to challenge it and ask yourself, is this a feeling or a fact? Where is the evidence that this person is rejecting me? Or is there evidence that they actually want to be nearer to me? Well, the evidence is usually going to be they want to be nearer to me, they want a relationship with me, but I feel uncomfortable with that. It's okay to talk about that too. It's okay to let them know, hey, I go slow in relationships. I don't naturally feel safe with people. I just want to give you that as a heads up early, but I do value the relationship. And I think also teaching people, signaling to them, I do value the relationship. I do like this. Sometimes I kind of need to retreat to regroup and kind of empower myself to come back to it. But teaching people who you are in relationship is a very fair way, and it gives them the opportunity to know what they're getting into so that when they see you retreat, they don't misunderstand that and make the matter worse.
And I've got some feedback on perspective. So Jim talked about the opposite ends of the continuum, right? So on one end, the people who just let everybody in, we would call those porous boundaries.
Porous.
Yep, as in lots of holes.
Right, porous skin.
Exactly. And then on the opposite end of that, you've got rigid, where no one gets in.
Yeah.
Everybody's on the outside. Both of those extremes are going to be unhealthy. They're going to produce problems. We want to be someplace in the middle. But here's one thing that I've noticed working with people is from whichever extreme, if I'm working with someone with really porous boundaries or someone with really rigid boundaries, as you begin to work on this and you start moving closer towards the center, the first step you're going to take, it's going to feel like you've swung all the way to the other end.
Right.
Because it feels so foreign to you. And you're going to have to work through that, and you're going to have to fight that feeling that it's going to feel very uncomfortable. So if you're the type where you don't let anybody in and you break up with them before or you distance them before they have a chance to hurt you, as you start to open up, you're going to feel way more vulnerable than you actually are.
Yeah. And when somebody's this writer's on the side of rigidity, right? They have the tall walls and they're afraid of letting anybody in. And so one of the bad things that will happen is if we're counseling a person like this and we try to have them experiment with relationships and step forward in them, what inevitably happens is the other person in their humanity does something that scares you or feels like you're being abandoned, and that inch turns into a mile in your mind and you tend to overreact. But here's the thing that I want to tell everybody who might relate to this writer. The fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection, the fear of the other human having contact with your soul is much, much worse than the actual thing itself. And I wrote a note to my children. I'm writing a book for my kids. It's just for them. But there's a story in it where I tell my kids how I want them to step into the pitch in life, step into the pitch. And it's a baseball reference. Whenever you first get up there to play baseball and you're a little kid and you're playing in pitch baseball, you're terrified of the ball, terrified of getting hit. But the fear of that ball is way worse than actually getting pegged with it. Like when you get hit in the shoulder, it falls down and it hits the ground before you even feel the pain. And so when I was playing catch with my kid, he was terrified of the ball, and he would always, recoil away and he'd never play. And I realized, you know what, I'm going to teach you not to be afraid. And so I pitched it right into his chest faster than he could possibly react. It thudded into his chest. It hits the ground. He looks down at it. He looks up at me. He's a little shocked, but then he smiles. And he leans down and picks it up and throws it back to me. And from that point on, he wasn't afraid of it anymore. Yeah. So sometimes in life, if you want to get over a fear of something, if the fear of the thing is worse than the thing itself, step into the pitch. Let the ball hit you. You'll be surprised that it's not as bad as you thought it was.
Our 7th grade football coach did the same thing because it was the first year that we had contact football. And so before the first game, he said, the first thing I want you to do is go hit somebody.
Yeah.
Because we were all so afraid of getting hit.
Yeah.
That once we hit somebody else,
the impact
we were like,
happened.
We got that out of the way. Yeah. We don't have to worry about it anymore.
Right. It's like getting into cold water. Just dive in and you'll be surprised.
And the other thing about the fear, too, is we have to talk about the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
So how does having that fear impact your behavior? So in the same sense that, like, if I'm taking a test in school and I feel like I'm going to fail and I continue repeating that message, I'm going to fail, well, then I don't study.
Right.
because my fear is driving that behavior. There's no point in studying if I know I'm going to fail. And then ultimately what happens? I fail.
Yeah.
I attribute that in my head to me being able to predict the future.
Right.
When in reality, what it was I just didn't study.
Yeah.
That's the natural consequence.
And people with these rigid boundaries, here's how it plays out. They like Jill and they start to lean in toward Jill. Jill starts leaning into them. They lean back because they feel afraid. Well, Jill reads that as a retreat and says, oh, shoot, I should be pulling back or I'm too much. So then she retreats and they go, I knew it.
Yep.
That's her. She was going to abandon me. I was a day away from her abandoning me. It's a good thing I pulled back first. And that's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yep. We create the thing that we're afraid of.
Yes. There's an old saying that sometimes we meet our fate on the path we took to avoid it. And, I think that's kind of the saying that I would give to this person. So my advice to you, step into the pitch. Let's continue to learn more about boundaries. We don't like walls. We like fences, middle ground. And I think that, that your fear of that vulnerability of being abandoned is actually much worse than the actual feeling of abandonment. Abandonment happens very quick and you get over it fast. Don't be afraid. Step into those relationships.
Thank you for writing in.
Thank you. All right, that's all the time that we have for this week's session. Thank you to those who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Help us reach others by sharing this episode. You can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy or on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys.
Do you want to add your own advice to today's questions? Post your thoughts at podtherapy.net and join the conversation. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Jobin.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.